With 2025 sales expected to cross the $2 billion mark, New York's legal weed industry is definitely growing. But is it working for the people it promised to uplift? For our communities most harmed by prohibition, legalization is supposed to mean jobs, opportunity, and repair. But 3 years in, a lot of New Yorkers are still wondering, where they at? Who's really benefiting? Real voices, real talk from the city and the state. That's still writing the next chapter of cannabis justice. Let's go see what they're saying. From Bed-Stuy to Brownsville, we back in them streets. Brooklyn, USA, asking New Yorkers what they know about cannabis jobs, hiring equity, and giving people real second chances. I'm Jamil Myrie, and this is What You Heard. Let's go.
Jobs. I don't think I've ever heard those two words put together like that. So that's a great way to start my brain. I personally know a person in Long Island who has a farm.
Okay.
So that comes to mind. Yeah. But that's a recent thing. If you had to ask me this maybe 3 months ago, I'd have probably been like, the bodega be selling. You work at the bodega, you might have a little song. Right. But yeah, I see a lot of dispensaries pop up. Right. So that's really all I would think is like, you work at a dispensary. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's all that really comes to mind.
Right. It's an industry that's getting ready to cross $2 billion this year at the end of the year.
Are we talking like nationally or locally? Like
just New York.
Just New York?
Yes. Big industry.
I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 B's.
That makes sense.
Right?
New York. Yeah.
And it's big.
I like
it's
that.
Big,
You're right, brother.
You know what I'm saying? So
we talking about fairness?
We talking about fairness, equity.
We don't live in the country of fairness and equity, though. So I do know that. So I don't really expect fairness per se. Okay. I'm a Libra. I look for fairness. You know what I mean? I love I'm a mathematician. Yeah. So I think that things should be balanced. But I know we're in a system that is built on making sure it's not balanced. Okay. So I don't expect it. For me, that's a uphill battle with all the weights on to try to get those types of outcomes in the system.
Gotcha.
For me, if you want to get on an even footing, you can't join somebody else's thing and be like, hey, let me get on the same footing as you while we compete. They're not going to set you up to compete with them. That's just how I see that. So I completely understand that there's a block to other people getting in the game. That's how they always play the game. So I'm not surprised by that. So even when you ask me that question, like, what do you know about the job, cannabis jobs? And I'm like, there's that intelligent part of me that's like, oh, I'm embarrassed. I don't know nothing about cannabis jobs. I can't say nothing intelligent about that. Right. And then that instantly lets me know, like, oh, damn, why don't I? You know what I mean? Because that information is not being dispensed. Right. I've never seen a flyer for that.
You could. Would you work in the cannabis industry?
Definitely, yes,
yeah?
I would. Yes, I would.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I believe in the benefits.
Have you heard anything in terms of like education, cannabis job fairs, or anything like that in the community?
Honestly, I haven't. No, I have not. I would, I haven't. I would probably attend if I knew more about it, but I haven't heard of it, to be honest. Yes, I think that with the legalization of cannabis, that the Black family structure can improve because. And this is based on research that my daughter did for college. She was looking into how so many families were separated because their fathers were taken away and incarcerated for the simple sale of a minimal amount of cannabis. Right. And so this, the legalization is going to improve that structure by keeping the fathers at home and also giving them opportunity.
Right, exactly. The opportunity.
To have an entrepreneurship store products and business.
Yeah. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not sure if opportunities come to mind. Because when let me rewind a little bit. John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, speaking on behalf of the legalization of cannabis, it was a double-edged sword for me. I'm like, okay, so the other side has gotten their claws into it. And at this point, I think after that, what happens is, and this is just my opinion, I think it becomes, how should I say, fizzled out or sifted. So whatever scrums that remain at the bottom now, the disenfranchised is going to get. It's almost like prohibition in a way. When we go back and read about it, how absurd that law was. And in some cases, what we see now in terms of the cannabis industry. Now, I'm not a cannabis user.
Okay.
I also believe that there is medicinal purposes to it.
Absolutely.
However, and I hope this doesn't do any harm to your
Not at all.
documentary.
Not at all.
I think when you begin to put fire, you change the chemical composition of something.
Absolutely. The
So,
decarboxylation.
there we go. So now, if you're doing it in the form of teas and all of that other stuff, yes.
Yeah.
Tenders working in stores with recommending different strains for different things, because what people don't understand is that cannabis is medicine. So each strain does something different.
Right.
So when you have someone who's a bud tender who is knowledgeable on the properties and the side effects that each strain gives you, it works better that way. An easier path is not as easy as people make it seem. So when it comes with the social equity, like I said, I'm not too familiar when it comes to as an employee, but as an employer, as a business owner, it's very hard, especially if you are a C applicant, which is for the social equity. There's a lot of hoops and red tape and things that you have to get through. Like when it comes to owning an actual dispensary, you can't be like, all right, let's say I wanted one across the street. You see how those businesses are shuttered. I can't have that place. The city tells me where my business is going to be located at.
Cannabis jobs. So when you say cannabis jobs, my holistic mind, I like to think of people in the field tilling, growing, trimming, drying. But we live in a different kind of world, and people aren't cultivating plants in the way that they should. So when you think cannabis jobs, I'm thinking dispensaries, people selling. I'm thinking black market selling. I'm thinking people in lab coats wearing all white, dealing with plants, which is inorganic. So that's what I think of when you ask me cannabis jobs. So it depends on if they were knowledgeable and they had the love and the passion for it. But incarceration, that's just a title, you know?
Yeah.
So
Right.
so for sure, it just if they're open and willing to give and they love what they do, why not?
Cannabis jobs,
Yeah.
like someone selling weed.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Like selling weed. Okay.
Okay,
So
that's-
that's what comes to mind.
Stores.
Stores. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Illegal.
Okay.
stores.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hustlers.
Hustlers. All right.
Oh, for them who were incarcerated to have a job selling weed
Selling weed legally.
legally.
Yeah. And just an easier path than say you or me, who we weren't incarcerated.
Do they have an easier path to vote?
It's the same path, right?
Right.
Okay,
Right. So
so-
do they? They're selling in the community, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I think if they do that, it needs to come with a stipulation. Just like I feel like everyone should volunteer,
Okay.
right? So if you're going to sell in the community, how are you helping the community? Only taking. So what can you give to the community? So now, are you selling this to kids? Like,
No, absolutely not.
Right.
This is the legal side. Yeah.
correct. So how do we monitor that though?
Okay. Shop. Would you hire someone who's formerly incarcerated?
I would have to have a long discussion about that,
Okay.
Because it's just like feeling out if they weren't incarcerated.
Sure.
You want to feel out their energy, and is it genuine? That subject is a little different for me because
hear you.
I'm not into weed.
I hear
I've
you.
never smoked.
Right.
I know people who do.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think the reforming part is important.
Yeah.
So the conversation about the why,
Yes.
is it just to make the money? Because we know that there's medicinal purposes for that as well. So are they going in with that mindset, or are they going in as hustlers?
Yeah. Streets is talking, and they're keeping it 1,000. What we heard today is that New Yorkers want cannabis jobs. They want their own cannabis businesses. They want to be a part of this industry, but they also want accountability. Behind all of that, though, there's a real stigma that's still amongst us, very present. But in all truth, opportunity changes everything. So how are cannabis businesses creating these opportunities? And what does equity-centered hiring look like from the inside? Well, let's talk cannabis with someone who's doing just that. Let's go.
We just heard from them streets, right? And people want to see the promise of social equity in cannabis reach their communities. And from what I heard, I can't say that they're seeing it. Well, today, we have with us a dear friend and colleague, a day one advocate and supporter of CJEI, and an industry leader, Ms. Arana Hankin-Biggers. Thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Arana is the president and co-founder of the travel agency, A Cannabis Store, Union Square, Rockefeller Center, Fifth Avenue, Soho, and downtown Brooklyn, right by Barclays Center. She is, as I would describe, excellence, Black excellence. And she ain't just talking about equity, she's doing it every day, building it into how the travel agency hires, trains, and grows talent. Arana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
No
so excited
doubt.
to be here.
Yes, yes. Well, we are so energized and super excited to have you in studio. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
All right, so listen, I know that I got so much I want to get into, and we're going to get into all of it. All right, so you ready?
I'm ready.
All right,
let's get started.
Let's go. So let's run the tape back, all the way back. In the beginning, right, when you first envisioned the travel agency, what role did you see it playing in New York's social equity story?
Yeah, for me, I thought it was an opportunity to build generational wealth for myself and my family, being a part of a nascent industry, but also being able to support other Black-owned businesses, Black-owned brands, Black-owned, security companies, other people that are in adjacent industries to be able to lift those up as well. And some of that has come to fruition, some of it has not. Like, for example, there's not nearly as many Black-owned brands in the market in New York State as there should be, in my opinion. But what we've seen with the time that I've been with the travel agency over the last almost close to 3 years, the biggest piece, I think the biggest impact that we've been able to make really is around workforce. Because we've hired close to 250 people, primarily part-time, but a good 70 to 80% of those people are folks of color. So I think that's been the easiest way for us to have a significant impact is through the hiring that we do.
Well, that's first and foremost, thank you for sharing that, and just in terms of your good works, in terms of the workforce side of things, and finding where to access the equity piece, in this puzzle, right? For our viewers, who, and actually you could even, call up the folks that we were interviewing in the streets, what you heard. What are cannabis jobs? Like, what are some of the career paths that folks can take in the cannabis space, specifically in the dispensary world? Yeah,
on the retail side, I mean, they're traditional retail jobs. So it certainly helps to have, a love and a passion for cannabis, but having some sort of experience with sales is super helpful. There's managerial positions. There's also inventory positions.
It's like back of house.
Back of house.
Okay.
Where you're managing the inventory and the intake and the deliveries, which is like a very fastidious, like very detail-oriented position. And then there's, security. So we have an independent third-party company that does security for us. But most of the jobs are traditional retail jobs. But I would say they're a lot more complex in traditional retail because it's a highly regulated industry. So you really have to be very detail-oriented, really hyper-focused on the products that we offer and be passionate about cannabis, to be willing to learn about all the various different products that we do offer. So it is a lot more intense, a lot more, detail-oriented, a lot more a lot harder, I would say, than traditional retail.
Yeah,
To
you
work
just
in a
can't
cannabis
show up
dispensary.
and just kind of clock in and just like walk
No,
through
you
in
can't.
a zone.
You can't.
In a trance, in
We
a
do
zombie.
40 hours of classroom training before someone even
Okay.
starts working in the stores. Then we do ongoing weekly training, and with the brands when they come in, and we do ongoing training with our learning and development specialist who comes into the stores on a quarterly basis to do very extensive training around customer service and the history of cannabis.
Yeah.
So it's extensive training on an ongoing basis, and folks who work at the dispensary really have to be willing to absorb all that information. It's a lot of information to absorb and to learn about.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we circle back to the social equity side of it and just the equity-centered hiring. How intentional would you say the travel agency has been with regard to hiring folks who, you know, were formerly incarcerated or coming from communities disproportionately impacted?
Yeah, from the legacy community specifically. So I'd say that a lot of the people that we hire have exposure or have worked in the legacy space, and a handful or so have convictions. And it wasn't necessarily very purposeful, but the ones that really shined in the interview process were the ones that were most knowledgeable about cannabis.
Okay.
And they were most knowledgeable about cannabis because they had extensive experience working in the legacy space.
Corner boys.
Yes, so we a lot of those folks are the ones that we've hired because they have a love of the plant and they're very knowledgeable about the plant, which is very, very helpful when you're engaging with customers and convincing customers to buy specific products. So it definitely attracts, I think, naturally folks who have experience with cannabis working in the legacy space, and many of the folks that we brought on have that experience. We also have partnerships with folks like CJEI, but also Kingsborough Community College with Hospitality Pathways, and then also Department of Veteran Services. So these are not-for-profits except for the Department of Veteran Services, but Hospitality Pathways, Kingsborough Community College that have a cannabis training program, and CJEI included, that have a specific cannabis training program
The RT program. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what, like, yeah.
that trains folks who are from communities that have been disproportionately harmed by the racist war on drugs. And many of those folks have convictions or work in the legacy space. And so we've partnered with those organizations to be more purposeful about bringing in people who are most harmed during Prohibition.
Yeah, like I said, day one advocate and supporter of CJEI and all these other, you know, community-based organizations that's doing this work. You know, as we talk about folks who are formerly incarcerated, as well as folks who are coming from communities disproportionately impacted.
Yeah.
What barriers or rather, what barriers still exist for justice-impacted, you know, individuals who want to access cannabis jobs? You know, whether it's stigma, training, background checks. You know, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the background check is an issue for us as long as it's, you know, a non-violent offense. We hire lots of folks with convictions on their records. I would say the biggest thing probably is the tech. Every single dispensary has a very different culture, right?
Tech, what do you mean tech?
The technology that we use at the dispensary.
I mean,
it's a lot of tech. No. We use a lot of tech at the travel agency. Every dispensary is very different, right? So some of the smaller ones, maybe they just have some iPads on the sales floor and the POS behind the counter. We have lots of different tech platforms that we use at the travel agency, right? So we use Dutchie POS. We have the Apple iPads on the floor that the customer uses to place orders. We use Slack. We now have recently rolled out Lattice, which is, you know, helps with, which generates the performance reviews for the employees. We have When I Work, which we use for scheduling and for communication with your managers. So there's a lot of different platforms that we use because we have a larger operation. I don't think some of the smaller guys have as many of those, but that's definitely can be an impediment. But the POS system alone is complicated enough because we oftentimes have discounts or specials or bundles, and you have to keep track of everything and know what code to enter. And it's a lot to just manage just the POS, which is pretty consistent.
You got to make sure the count is right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you have to be familiar with technology and very comfortable with using, a computer, and so that can be an impediment if you're not familiar with all those platforms.
Is the stigma still kind of a barrier for?
For sure, the stigma is a huge impediment. You know, I think a lot of folks certainly struggle with working in legal cannabis space because they're so exposed, right? They're embarrassed to share with their family or friends, even if they work in the legacy space, because it's now out in the open. But also just stigma in the community. So like, you know, we have partnerships with local elected officials and local organizations, and I feel like they should be doing a lot more to promote the opportunities in the cannabis space, but they don't really do much to promote the opportunities because there is such a huge stigma still.
If you could share one last thing in terms of just what, for instance, what could the city and the state, you know, big picture, be doing more of, if they're doing it at all, in terms of scaling equity in, as far as like hiring and access to jobs?
I mean, there's so much more the leadership can be doing. I mean, first and foremost, it really is helping to build a healthy industry that is stable and that is strong. And from my opinion, the first thing that they should be prioritizing is enforcement of the illicit shops.
Okay.
Because it's going to be near impossible for the legal market and for legal operators to survive if these illicit shops keep opening up. But around equity, I think it is just providing more support and more financial assistance to Black-owned, Brown-owned dispensaries. There was supposed to be a fund, if you recall, that was $250 million. I think they only gave away $50 million, and the agreements that they entered into, that the state brokered on behalf of some of the first group of operators, of licensed retailers, are really awful agreements where their monthly payback, the amount that they pay back every month is incredibly high.
Right. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the state just doesn't know anything about what it takes to run a for-profit company, let alone a highly regulated retail business.
I mean,
so they just put them in a really bad position, and they kind of set them up to not succeed.
Yeah, I hear that.
So there's a lot more they should be doing.
So, you know, one thing I want to do, because I'm looking over at my producer saying, you know, we need to, you know, and it's not, it's something that you shared, and I really want to break the fourth wall here and just say, I don't know if y'all peeped the flip, right? The flip here was, and it's a playbook gem, I'll call it. Second chances aren't charity, they're strategy, right? They build stronger teams, loyal employees, and a more just and inclusive industry. And so, Arana, at this point, I really just want to say thank you for being in studio with us, for joining us, but most importantly, for showing New York what equity-centered hiring looks like from the inside. And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to sing, I want to thank you. I want to do all of that. Thank you for being here with us today. And you got to come back real soon.
I'd love that. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back after this.